Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Atlantic Institute's dialogue event this Thursday evening. The discussion is on Lent and what it is. Before we start, I am going to share my screen. Some of you may or may not have already seen this short video that we made. We're trying to share it so that you get to get an idea of who we are. I'm going to go ahead and put it on here. Oh, I forgot to check off. Hopefully there's sound. Just somebody nod your head if there's sound and if you can hear this. I forgot to check off that little sound button. Can you hear it? Mm-hmm. All right, hold on. Wait. There is that one button I forgot to hit. Share sound. Share. Okay. Every once in a while we have those technical difficulties. There we go. That's better.
The Atlantic Institute is a nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting harmonious coexistence between peoples of various cultures, faiths, and backgrounds. We seek this goal through peaceful dialogue, education initiatives, and community organization. Our dialogue events bring together experts, community and faith leaders, and knowledge seekers to address social issues that affect us all. We feel dialogue is the most important element in peaceful coexistence, so we try and maintain several panel discussions, TED Talk events, and book clubs throughout the year. These events touch on social issues, race relations, and cultural understanding and are a mainstay of our programming. The Atlantic Institute's education events are extremely important to our mission of understanding. We want to promote socially forward critical thinking to students of all ages. To that end, we have developed programs that seek to grow the creative spirit of students and help them think about their communities and the world around them. Our Future Leaders of Dialogue event brings together nominated elite students to learn from each other as well as political and business leaders. Our art and essay contest gives students a theme about important societal issues and allows them to create wonderful works of art and writing while steering their minds towards improving their world. We're always seeking ways to educate youths and adults in order to make a peaceful world for all of us. Our community events are designed to transform neighbors into friends and groups of people into a community. By associating with other nonprofits or by our own initiative, we are always trying to discover new avenues to improve our neighborhoods, places of worship, and community centers. We host cooking demonstrations of food from other cultures, work with various nonprofits to help elevate the work of others, and try to find a way to make the lives of those who are disenfranchised or marginalized better. Building a more peaceful world starts in our backyards, so we are dedicated to improving our communities and associations. The Atlantic Institute is always seeking like-minded volunteers and collaborators. If you would like to learn more, find volunteer opportunities, or just want to chat with our staff, please visit our website at www.atlanticinstitutesc.org or follow us on Facebook. We will never run out of fun, educational, peaceful events, so come join us to help make this world a better place full of understanding and unity.
Okay, very good. That's what we wanted to just share and make sure that everybody gets to see. And I know I need to delete that. All right, and here we are back again. So that is one of the reasons why we are here tonight is what we are about and sharing in some dialogue. Atlantic Institute has hosted different faith conversations in the past. One of the ones we've done in the past for the Muslims is a lot about Ramadan, as well as our Tour of Faiths events that we have hosted as well. So this one I thought would be a very good thing for us to be able to learn about, as Lent is one of the Christian holidays that comes around every year. And not everybody knows everything there is to know about Lent. There's a lot of different variations to it. And so I was able to talk with Johanna Myers. Her church has hosted us for Ramadan events and other dialogue events over the past few years. And she came up with a really cool, she's in charge of the children's church at Aldersgate United Methodist. And she came up with a very cool interactive Lent discussion for families this year. And then we have Pastor Stephen Sachs. He is with the Lutheran Church of the Good Shepherd. And I had the privilege and honor of traveling with him and a bunch of other ministers from different faiths back in 2014 to Turkey. So we were together for 10 days traveling through all of and seeing all the different historical sites. So I'm eager to hear from you both, and thank you very much for your time put into this, and we appreciate it. So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys take it away.
Okay, all right, great. Thanks, Christina. Glad to be here. So what we thought we would do is start with a little bit of a kind of historical, like what are we talking about, kind of foundation, and then we're going to kind of then move to talk about what does it mean 2,000 years into this, and what does it mean to us today. Steve and I both are coming from Protestant denominations, so we're going to kind of bring that to the table. If you are talking to somebody from who's Catholic or Orthodox, like our Greek Orthodox neighbors, they might have a different spin on that, on Lent, different practices or whatnot. So just kind of know that we're both speaking from that kind of Protestant, mainline kind of Protestant take on this. And that does matter. It does change how we kind of approach this. So, all right, so what exactly is Lent? Lent is for us, the 40 days prior to Easter, not counting Sundays, which is where it gets a little confusing. It's how we can start on a Wednesday and end on a Sunday, and it be not 40 days, but we keep talking about 40 days. Sundays we don't count, and there's a real reason why. Sundays are the first day of the week, and they are always mini Easters. Little Easters, the days when we gather to remember the good news of Jesus, that he rose from the dead. So if Sundays are mini Easters, then even during Lent, they are still considered kind of these little mini Easters, and so they don't count. So it's 40 days from Ash Wednesday to Easter, not including Sundays. So it kind of covers about 46 days. Ash Wednesday, which for us this year was yesterday, is the first day of the season. And again, we kind of run through to Easter, and the last week of Lent is what we call Holy Week. And we'll get to that in a second. So Ash Wednesday, yesterday for us, you might have seen Christians, maybe not so much this year because we had a hard time figuring out how to do this in the middle of a pandemic. But on many Ash Wednesdays, you would see Christians walking around with a black ashy cross on their forehead. And these would have been ashes received and posed by like in their church service. And when the minister imposes ashes, he or she would say something like, repent and believe the good news, or they might say, from dust you come and from dust you will return, which is a really kind of powerful statement. I know for me, as doing that in a worship service, particularly for our elderly members, to say to them kind of, like you're facing your mortality, it's really hard. It's also particularly hard with young children, right? Like little ones, to say, you come from dust, and that's where you're headed. It's a hard statement, but that service of Ash Wednesday is there to remind us of our mortality. It's there to remind us of our sin, and it is a call to repentance, which then leads into this kind of 40-day long season. So Lent, there are kind of three main components: prayer, drawing closer to God through prayer; fasting, drawing closer to God through giving something up; food, social media, television, all kinds of kind of different ways you can approach that. And then almsgiving or giving, service in some sense. So for example, if you have chosen to give up, say, fast food for the 40-day season of Lent, then ideally, not only are you using that as a kind of self-discipline and kind of the practice of giving something up, you're taking the money that you would have spent on that fast food throughout the 40 days and giving it back to the community. So for example, our church does a big Lenten offering, and we kind of decided that at the start that which community outreach might receive that fund. And so we kind of collect through those 40 days. So prayer, fasting, and almsgiving or giving service all combine for a season that is meant to draw us closer to God and to prepare us for Easter. So the last week, as I said, is Holy Week, and it starts the Sunday before Easter, Palm Sunday. We remember how Jesus entered the city of Jerusalem, and then Thursday is what we call Maundy Thursday. Maundy from the Latin word meaning mandate. It is the night that we remember Jesus' last meal with his disciples. And it is during that meal that, according to John's gospel, at least, Jesus gave his followers a new commandment. This I command to you, that you love one another as I have loved you. So Maundy Thursday comes from this idea of this new commandment, and we celebrate this Last Supper. It's the night that Jesus was arrested. And so from that Thursday night through Friday, we remember Jesus's trial and his execution, his crucifixion. Usually kind of noon on Good Friday is the kind of timing that we stop and remember Jesus's death. Many churches will have services both on Thursday night and Friday night, or sometime during the day on Friday. Saturday, the day that Jesus laid in the tomb. So it's a very kind of quiet day. There are a lot of people who will fast from noon on Good Friday until midnight on Saturday. So during that entire kind of period that Jesus was in the tomb. And all of this comes, and then we head into Easter. So all of this kind of comes around that idea of preparing for Easter. And it started really with preparing those who were going to be baptized on Easter Sunday. And so as the folks who were going to be baptized on Easter at the kind of Saturday night Easter vigil, their communities began to kind of join them in preparation. And it started well before kind of the 300s, when Christianity became kind of legal and everything got a little bit more organized, with maybe 40 hours. And then by the Council of Nicaea in 325, it kind of stretched into the 40-day long season. So why 40 days? Because Jesus fasted in the wilderness for 40 days. And it was there that the story goes that he was tested by Satan. And all of this happened before he started his earthly ministry. So this kind of period of trial and preparation before he begins his public ministry, before he begins kind of teaching and preaching and healing. And so the idea of kind of 40 is a big number, right? And throughout scripture, so 40 years in the wilderness for the Israelites, preparation to head into the promised land, 40 appears a lot. And it means perhaps both a literal 40 days, but more importantly in scripture, it means a period of testing or a period of growth. And so that 40 days kind of represents this time of preparation and growth. So Lent is all about kind of repenting and kind of self-reflection to make sure that we're ready for Easter. And it's also about kind of growing closer to God and to one another. That's like a very fast run through. So we can kind of stop there, and you can throw out questions for me, for Steve, and then I'm going to turn it over to him and let Steve talk a little bit about what it means. Kind of get from there.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
if you guys have any questions, you can probably just go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead and ask if you'd like to. You can always type it in the chat box if it's easier for you to get a question through if somebody else is asking one. But if you'd like to, you can always just unmute and ask. I was going to ask one. So when you are fasting for those 40 days, you're giving up it. There's no specific things you're giving up. You just kind of are choosing, correct?
Right.
Guidelines.
Yeah.
I was looking for
Yeah,
guidelines.
it's not,
There's no guidelines.
This
Right.
is America. Choice.
well, across the board, it's not really as prescriptive. So this isn't like a Ramadan fast where it's hardcore sun up to sundown. Like it is not. You might have some people who do that, absolutely. In the Catholic tradition, they have a tendency to give up meat, at least on Fridays. If you grew up with a lot of Catholic neighbors or near a Catholic church, or if you went to Catholic school, you might have eaten fish on Fridays. It has to do with the practice of kind of giving up meat, but fish was excluded from that giving up because they were cold-blooded versus warm-blooded. There's actually some weird like Henry VIII politics involved with that. But nevertheless, that was the tradition, kind of giving up meat. For us, and so I'm Methodist, so for us, and I think Steve would probably speak to this as well, like we have a tendency to let people kind of choose what they're going to give up. And it may be food related, but it may also be something not food related. So fasting is a little bit more broadly defined.
Okay. And
Well,
then
I wanted to say something. I'm Catholic, and I'm an older Catholic, and we have to abstain, of course, during Lent. We don't eat meat on Fridays. But as far as fasting goes, I think they said anybody over the age of 65 doesn't have to fast, but we are obligated to abstain from eating meat on Fridays, Ash Wednesday, and Good Friday. And as far as giving up something for Lent, when we were young, I think most of us gave up candy. But now that as we got older, one year it was suggested, and I think many of us do this now, instead of giving up some food, we should do something that is not something we ordinarily do that would help somebody, you know.
Yeah, the idea of taking something on. Thank you for that. Thank you for bringing a Catholic perspective to the conversation. I appreciate that. Yeah, the taking on of something, that's relatively modern, I would say, but I think it's gaining traction. I hear that a lot, like kind of the taking on of a new spiritual discipline, or taking on of a new challenge.
Yeah. And I didn't become a Catholic till I had my family. So I think I was 32 when I became Catholic. So I thought about it a long time. My husband was Catholic. So I had been attending Mass with him when we got engaged all the way up to many years of marriage before I decided to convert. So anyway, that's our, what's the difference between what we do. And then of course we have what we call reconciliation. We're supposed to have, they used to call it confession. That's not that word doesn't sound too good, but reconciliation sounds much better. You know, we do that.
yes, I can understand that.
I had a friend, I don't know what was her denomination, which church she goes, but she will say that she has to not eat something that she likes. Like say, if she has cakes, she has affinity towards cakes, so she won't eat cakes. So you give up something to eat, don't eat for 40 days. And it is not meat or fish, because maybe at one time, meat was so expensive, it was a delicacy. Not people didn't eat the meat like we do, people do it now, not we, but most
Yeah.
of the people do it like that. So she would give up something, particularly what she doesn't like. And that I thought was a great thing. It's not a fasting like Ramadan where they don't eat anything from morning, sunrise to sundown. They don't eat anything. There are Jainism. They will eat only during the light, when there is a light. After the light, they don't eat. So there are no 7 o'clock meals there. Everything has to be done before the lights is off, you know. So there are different way people just want to know that you don't just eat. You know, somewhere you have to stop eating and give rest to your stomach and stuff like that. I'm from a Hindu tradition, and we have lots of different ways we fast.
So one other fasting question that I was thinking of too that I wanted to add was the time from Good Friday that you said till Saturday at midnight. You said a lot of people will fast during that period. Would that be a food sort of fast?
Yeah, for some.
For some, like I'm wondering if that would be like an all food fast or something. I guess they just kind of create their own.
Yeah, I think it's more of a create your own. Steve, I don't know if you know of anybody that fasts during that period. You know, it might be just like the TV doesn't go on for that whole, you know, it's a way of kind of marking, particularly from Thursday night on until Sunday, like sunrise on Sunday morning, particularly as, you know, the suffering and death of Christ, and kind of marking that 3-day window as so potentially the last food that you would have eaten real, you know, kind of, you know, again, depending on the person, but kind of the last meal being the communion or Eucharist or Mass of Thursday night to, you know, midnight Mass vigil on that Saturday, or, you know, Holy Communion kind of Sunday morning. So just kind of thinking about from meal to meal and how do we fast in those really kind of high holy days. You know, Lent is holy, but Holy Week is called Holy Week for a reason. Like it is, you know, kind of high holy, you know, big important feasts and festivals and traditions.
If you want, I can comment something. One of my friend, cardiologist, he and his family, they say they only drink liquid on Tuesdays, but you can even drink water and do the fasting. Water, or you can eat juice, but not something like milk, buttermilk. You don't drink that because it has a food element in it. And he started with his family. He's a young fellow, and he may be 50s around or under 50. And he started telling a lot of his patients, and he's a cardiologist. He works full day, but he just drinks liquid on Tuesdays. And I thought it is a good idea if the whole world can follow Tuesday. So much food will be saved for the people who do not have enough to eat. Of course, that food doesn't go there because long time ago, one of Indian prime minister started doing that Monday is evening, nobody eats a meal because we have so many hunger going on in India itself. Not that what I say goes to those people, but that is not eaten by me. So having this as a, and the best part of it, after doing that Tuesdays he does, lot of his patients felt better. They are reducing their what is that, triglycerides and all that. It somehow, and once you did, I did that for now 4th week or something like that. I did that. But what happens is your body gets used to it, and it wants to rest. Your stomach and everything wants to rest on that day. It looks forward for Tuesdays because I don't have to, you know, if you don't eat, that means you don't cook. That means you don't think about cooking. You don't have to worry about what to cook. You spend a lot of time on that.
It means you get a break, yes.
No
Thank
chicken,
you.
no meat, no fish, nothing. You don't have to think nothing about food that day.
Yes, thank you, Shayla. Anybody have any other thoughts or questions before I move on to Steve? Just want to check. We have an opportunity at the end to go ahead and ask as well. Go ahead, Steve. And if you would like to share with us.
I'm not sure if too much to add, although except to say that probably historically Lutherans would be closer to the Roman Catholic end of the spectrum in terms of the observance of Lent. However, as Johanna indicated, there is not any established rules regarding fasting. And I know that in my own parish, some people will give up alcohol the entire time of Lent. I know there are some, I've been surprised at how rigorous some people give up meat the whole entire 40 days at my parish. But we don't, it's kind of like we're not talking about that. It's not something that people will, share readily. It's kind of as Johanna indicated, it's a personal decision or choice. I think what's important, and this was alluded to earlier, is to emphasize that it's not just the abstaining or which many people unfortunately mistake as a negative. We don't do this, we don't do that, but rather it's an abstaining for the purpose of, assisting or aiding another. Or even for using that time, for instance, you might use the time in which you're not preparing a meal if you skip a meal for prayer, for personal prayer and meditation. So I think Johanna covered it pretty well. We of course begin Ash Wednesday in the same way. I would emphasize too, though, that the preparation, I think it's important, at least the Lutheran understanding, and which would be similar to Catholic, it's very much a season of repentance. And that the fasting, sadly, I think all of us would agree that particularly in the affluent West, fasting might be done for health reasons, but if it's done at all, we really have a perpetual feast, if you think about it, in America, at least those who are not food challenged, if you will. And so the idea of just intentionally abstaining, from the pleasures of food, or even undergoing hunger as a result, is pretty, seems pretty, I guess foreign to many. Although not just Islam, but even in Judaism, I know that during the day, Yom Kippur is a day of fasting, and the Day of Atonement. So it's curious too that I noticed, I was reminded of this in our gospel reading for yesterday's services, that Jesus doesn't say if you fast, if you pray, if you give alms. He says when. And at the time of Christ, I believe fasting was practiced, was it twice a week? Johanna, I don't know if you remember that or not. I know that for historic Christianity, Wednesday and Friday were typically days of fast. And that was done, I know Wednesday is done that was the day supposedly of Judas' betrayal, and that would be remembered. And Friday, of course, to commemorate the crucifixion of our Lord.
I actually didn't know that.
And I think I do know, being friends with Father Marcus, the Orthodox, their Lent is 50 days. So it's 10 days longer than the Western Church, and their fast is very strict. It's supposed to be,
Right.
They're supposed to eat vegan the whole 50 days. And as a result, they have what's called paschal illness that occurs with some people, because they usually have and include after their paschal vigil, a huge meal at about 3:30 or 4 in the morning, and fried chicken and fats, and people get sick because if they have kept the fast rigorously and abstained from all dairy, meat, and cheese, eggs, it can assault your system.
Big time.
Yes.
And they do that. They're a lot more. I think the Orthodox are very. If you're strict and observant, their fasts are much more severe than in the Western Church.
Yeah, I know we had a table of Abraham one year, and it fell during Lent, during that time, and the Orthodox church was in our table of Abraham, and we had to make sure we had vegan food out. And I have been vegan for some time, and I've been vegetarian, and I've been gluten-free, and I've been dairy-free, and I just thought vegan is not, it's a little rough. If you're not used to it, it's a little, I like butter. I still like butter. And I'd make ghee, or something like that. But it was, I really like cheese, and I had to give up cheese too. And it's butter and cheese, and I can give up all that other stuff, but butter and cheese kind of gotta stay. But
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was gonna say, so the butter, so thinking about that, so obviously we kind of missed out a little bit this year, but Tuesday, so the day before Ash Wednesday, would have been Mardi Gras,
Sure,
right? With like
right.
huge wild parties and whatever. Maybe not the end of the world that didn't happen this year, but so where does kind of Carnival or Mardi Gras or Fat Tuesday come from? And so the idea of butter, so the kind of strict fasting, people would have given up butter, dairy, meat, flour, like maybe not all flour, but just kind of the rich eggs, that kind of stuff, through like really rich food. Well, if you're coming into Wednesday and Ash Wednesday, and you're about to give up all of that, what's one thing that you can make that helps you use up your milk and your eggs and your butter? Well, pancakes work really well for that, or in your bacon, like all that kind of stuff. And so the idea, the tradition of eating pancakes the day before Shrove Tuesday, Fat Tuesday around here, maybe more. And if you're in England, they call it Pancake Day, literally because you eat pancakes that day before. And it was a way of getting out all of the stuff that you weren't going to be using for the next 3 days. One of the things I thought was really, and I didn't really know this until this week, but one of the reasons why we end up with Easter eggs
was from the fast.
Was because of the fast. So after 40 days, your butter, your dairy products, like those things would go bad. But on the whole, your eggs would be fine. And so eggs would be something that would kind of last through the fast, and you'd have them for Easter. And so they're beautiful kind of cultural traditions of decorating eggs. We just kind of dunk them in, colored vinegar and call it a day. But if you look, especially in Eastern Europe, the tradition of kind of decorating eggs for Easter, just beautifully complex and gorgeous artwork on these tiny little eggs. But it comes from the idea of fasting and the fact that the eggs would last.
He better be going and getting an egg.
Yay.
He's going to get his eggs.
Mine are all the way in the other room.
I was going to say, wait a second, though, because I believe he does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I make these.
Oh, gosh, that's awesome. Yeah. They're so pretty.
Because I know you have had a booth downtown Greenville in the past.
Yeah,
correct?
I still do.
Yes. Yep.
So yeah, those are called Ukrainian pisanki, and in the Orthodox tradition, they would abstain from the eggs, and the women would create them over in Lent, and then they would be brought to the Paschal Vigil, and they would be blessed, and then given to friends and family, and there's all kinds of traditions associated with pisanki.
That's right, pisanki eggs, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're beautiful. They're just gorgeous. Where do you live, Steve? Where are you based?
I live in Greer.
Where?
Greer, South Carolina.
Oh, I'm in California.
I was going to say, Josie, where are you at?
I'm from I'm east of San Francisco in a place called Walnut Creek, and my kids made Ukrainian Easter eggs when they were young. It was a lot of work, and I still have some of them. My kids are
neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a great craft.
Yeah, you paint all of those? Is that what you
actually the method is, if you know what batik, shalia. For a minute, Shayla, batik is done in Indonesia, India, Africa, and it's a wax-resistant method of dyeing cloth. Well, the tribal peoples of Western Romania, Western Ukraine, excuse me, and Eastern Romania, Moldova, the ancients, and this is actually, it's a pre-Christian art, they would use the eggs as fertility symbols in the pagan rites of spring. And they learned how beeswax resisted dye. And so, of course, their dyes were made all out of natural products, walnuts for black and beets for dark red, and or onion skins for light brown, that kind of thing. But they basically would, they created tools they called them a kiska. It's really a wax pen, and they would heat them in candles so that the wax would flow out the tip of this. And I don't have one on hand. I use electric ones, but the wax, wherever you would place the wax on the egg, it resists the dye. So you would start waxing a white egg, then you would dye it yellow. And then when it was dry, you would expand your design with the same tool and hot wax on the yellow shell. Wherever you put the wax will remain yellow. Then you would dye it another color. You go from light to dark. So you begin with a white egg, and you can see where there's white that had wax applied on, and then it was dyed yellow, and you can see where the yellow is, the pussy willow, and then the cross, of course, and the fishnets. And that's all done by hand. It's applied on the eggs by hand. And you can see.
And I'm just gonna, just because I don't know this, those are real eggshells, or are those?
They are, yeah.
Okay. I'm just.
I do chicken, duck, and goose eggs. I have not done ostrich because ostrich eggs are $40 a pop. And you have to invest. Invest in big containers and a lot of dye for an ostrich. Well, you'd need a big container. You wouldn't need so much dye because once you can hold it down, but I just don't do ostrich eggs. Plus, ostrich eggs, if they're decorated ornately, they'll start at about $350 each. That's a lot of money for an egg.
Oh, I have an ostrich egg. I don't know what to do with it. It is, of course, it is not. It is dry inside. But if you want, I can give it to you.
Are you local?
I'm in Charleston.
Ah, well, I'm in Greenville, but
Yes.
sometime if I come down.
The ostrich egg.
We'll make an
But
express.
if you really want to see the eggs, you have to go to, I think it is Hermitage in Russia.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And they have then decorated it with gold around. Oh, and they are so intricate, so delicately done. Very beautiful. And they are in, I guess they are in a long time there because they are in a museum. If you want to see the art there is a lot of it, but the eggs specifically.
I completely forgot about the eggs until you mentioned it, Johanna. And I thought, oh yes, that's right. And I forgot, see, Steve has done that. I've seen his pictures before.
Yes, I didn't know that tonight, so I'm glad I brought it. I'm glad I brought it up.
I'm glad we brought it up too, because that was quite. I think we intrigued Paul.
So yeah, you did. Now, well, I'm thinking about these eggs. So
he got really close to the computer and was like, really paying attention.
So what's the relationship between decorating eggs, which I appreciated hearing sort of that explanation with food and fasting and so on and so forth historically, and the cultural traditions of art. But what's the relationship between decorating eggs at Christmas and the nesting, the Russian nesting?
The matrushkas, I know less about, I know what they are. I could be wrong. I don't think that there's any relationship between the matrushka dolls and the pisanki.
Okay.
And to be sure, let me emphasize this. It's important to understand that people will call them Russian Easter eggs, but the actual craft or art did originate among tribal peoples of Western Ukraine about the time of Christ. So they're really a pre-Christian art form because those peoples, the Slavs in those areas, did not become Christian until the 10th century from Saint Cyril and Methodius. And so it was basically, they were used as fertility symbols in the rites of spring. And then when Christianity came, the egg became seen as a symbol of the uncreated life of God in the resurrection. That's how they got associated with Easter. And so they'd be exchanged as gifts and given to priests to young couples to, and there was superstition attached to them. They'd put them in their barns for good luck, that kind of thing. They're very agrarian society and culture. But if you hear them called Russian Easter eggs, I mean, you know, it's I don't have a dog in that fight, but Ukrainians do not, that I've met, don't like to be identified as Russian.
Correct.
So I had a guy yell at me downtown Greenville who, you know, I'm neither heritage, but I love the tradition. And I just said, look, I'm just saying what people have told me, you know. And he said, I don't have a dog in this fight.
Thank
But
you.
as
Yeah.
you said, that art of painting in that style, batik style, is there in India for long time ago. They still do it. Like you can have a sari done in batik design.
Oh yeah, but
Yeah, they
teak
still do
is
that.
widely done in India, Indonesia, and in Africa. And it's I don't know the history of batik as an art form, but I'm sure it's pre-Christian, I'm sure. They learned that the wax could be used on cloth. And it's the same principle on the eggs. The wax resists the dye.
Very interesting.
I often tell people that it is.
When did the story of those eggs being laid by rabbits came around? I was under the impression they are fancy because rabbit lays them or something.
No,
Yeah,
I have to say, Shayla,
didn't
I've
hear
never
about
heard of
it?
that.
Stephen, haven't you heard about it?
No. I mean, Easter bunnies are, and I grew up with that as a young child, the Easter bunny and the chocolate Easter bunnies, but never had I heard that the bunnies laid the eggs.
maybe that they brought
That's
the
why
eggs.
they're in the bushes.
Yeah, they brought the eggs.
They brought the eggs. They didn't lay the eggs.
There you go. That's it. That's
Yeah.
it.
So, and rabbits definitely are one of those, like Steve said, a lot of the traditions that now have kind of been brought into American consumerism around holidays started as ancient, potentially even like pre-Christian,
Yeah.
cultural kind of in farming, cultures and whatnot. So the rabbits were kind of a sign of fertility,
Yeah.
especially in the spring, and priests and pastors along the way, as they're trying to share the story of Jesus with their communities, began to use things that their communities related to or already knew or already understood, and used those as kind of ways to tell the story. So, if a community already had a tradition of these highly decorated eggs, or something like that, then how do you take that and help them understand the story of Jesus by using that as a symbol? And so some of these things, I mean, it's true of things like the Christmas tree, right? Like the idea of kind of an evergreen tree being really important was, to a certain extent, not necessarily Christian, but along the way, Martin Luther kind of took that symbol and helped people kind of use it to say, okay, well, it's a triangle and it points towards God, and it's evergreen the way that God is, never ending. And so they became kind of teaching tools using culturally specific things. Now, fast forward 1,000 years, things like bunnies and eggs get, sold all over the place in candy forms and whatnot that really don't have anything to do with the actual Christian holiday, like Santa Claus and whatnot. So, those, it is what it is. But those are the kinds of traditions that get kind of absorbed as teaching tools, because that's what we do.
The eggs, I was just thinking, if we can make up like things which make sense. You give, eggs are laid by chickens, and chickens always do it 1 egg per day. Now, if you are going to stay 40 days with those eggs laid and you are not going to eat them, by painting them, you are expressing your art and beauty, and at the same time don't eat those eggs for 40 days, so you will have a basket full of fancy eggs, you know. So that way, because meat you have to kill the animal to get it, but the eggs are not, they are there every day. You put your hand and pick up an egg. So eggs is a good idea to keep it for 40 days, not eat them. But instead of just putting them, if you give it to people and tell them to paint it, then their idea is egg to eat is less than egg to paint if you are doing it once a year.
Yeah.
You know? So
And you don't waste them, right? Because
don't
wasting
waste them,
food was,
and
you don't
you
waste
don't-
food.
and you don't desire to eat it as much if it was a boiled egg on the table and you want to eat it. You know,
Yeah.
if you paint
It's a
it,
good point.
it's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Paint the eggs.
Yes, very good point. Thank you, guys. That was actually a really interesting conversation that I totally wasn't even thinking was going to happen. That was very cool. Johanna, can you share with us what it was that you did this year? The files that she's created for the season of Lent. If anybody has children or knows of anybody that has children that would like to follow along, they're going to be on the website tomorrow when we have a recap of this event. But she just came up with this really creative way to do this. And I just thought if you could share with us for a minute, like what it was that you did.
Sure. So we, and honestly, it's not just for children. We designed it for all ages. And our church actually has folks in their 80s and 90s, all the way down to families with young children kind of participating in this. But we were thinking 2020 and 2021, at least to start with, have been years where we've given up a lot of things. And so the idea of giving something up this year felt, I wouldn't say wrong, because I think you know, it always depends on the person, but we really didn't want a 40-day like doom and gloom kind of solemn kind of 40 days this year. And so we are using C.S. Lewis's book, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. C.S. Lewis was a Christian writer in England, lived in the 1950s. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was written, I think, 1948. And it's a children's book, but it's one that it doesn't really matter how old you are. It's just a wonderful story. But he doesn't try to retell the story of Jesus, but he tries to kind of talk about things like sacrifice and forgiveness and sin and the consequences of sin. So a lot of the things that we would be thinking about and reflecting on during the season of Lent, this book kind of covers. And so we've kind of chosen to spend 40 days kind of reflecting on these themes that are important for the season, but we're using this children's book to do it. So we're hoping to have a little bit of fun. So what we've done, Stassi, to your point about taking on something new as opposed to giving up something, we've actually included recipes of things to bake and cook along the way. So there's no kind of giving up food with this, but it's more of kind of taking on something that you've never done before. So like, especially for some of our older adults, it might feel a little weird to take on something like this, but it's just a way of rethinking. Because ultimately the season of Lent is about preparing for Easter. So how you go about preparing for Easter, I think this is one of the reasons why we don't have as many prescriptive rules, because, you know, there's a way to be kind of flexible in this. If you're just giving up chocolate every year, then does that really prepare you for Easter? For some people it might. For me, it's just more of something that probably 10 days in, I'm gonna fail at miserably. And I just really didn't need that in this year. So we're taking on more of an adventure approach to ours, and I'm more than happy to share that with anybody who wants to kind of join in. I think, you know, the book is written from a Christian perspective, but at the same time, I think it has a lot of really good universal
Classical themes.
classical themes. Well, and just universally important themes, like Edmund is one of the kids. He's kind of a main character, and Edmund messes up and he lies, and he has to live with the effects of like the consequences of his lies. And gosh, if ever there is a message that I think we need to hear right now, consequences for our choices. It's a good, it's a good book. So we're in our first week of that study. Yeah, I'm
Yes,
happy for
very cool.
anybody to kind of join in. You do not have to be a child to join in. You can be a child at heart, or even a fetty-dead at heart if you want to do that.
Very cool. I know, it's very neat. Shayla, if you're muted again.
Very happy to meet everybody. I always wonder what Lent was. That was, and you told me in first 10 minutes, very fast. I thought you were very fast, but Johanna, you told me all about Lent that I needed to know. Okay, but I enjoyed your company. So let me go for some other scripture studies, okay?
Thank you, Shayla.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for joining us.
Bye.
And just to we're almost at about an hour. I mean, so if anybody else has a question that they might like to ask, you can feel free, but feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead and ask.
That's your name.
My name?
Yes, I just
Christina.
see Atlantic. I see
Yes,
Atlantic.
sorry.
Institute. Okay.
It's Christina.
Okay. It was very nice to see you all.
It was very nice to meet you all the way from
Thank you for
California.
joining
Thank
us,
you, Josie.
Josie.
Yeah. Well, I got to thinking about what Johanna said about, other practices of Lent. And that one thing we do in the Catholic Church is washing of feet on during Holy Week on Thursday.
Yeah. So that's, we've done that too. It can be kind of an awkwardly beautiful moment. Steve, I don't know if y'all have done a foot washing. Yeah.
We alternate every other year on Holy Thursday.
Awesome. So in the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke are when they talk about the Last Supper, they talk about it in terms of kind of Holy Communion. And John's Gospel talks about it in terms of Jesus washing his disciples' feet. And so both traditions are kind of part of that Thursday night service. So yeah, I don't know about you, but it's always weird and humbling and kind of vulnerable and awkward moment to have somebody wash your feet, which is why it's good, right? That's why it's good for us to have that.
I remember one time the church in Greenville, the Unity Church in Greenville, they did a hand washing, and everybody got up and they did a prayer and they did a hand washing. I just thought it was the weirdest thing to have somebody wash my hands. And I was trying to just think like this was very holy. This was very, but I was just like, this is just the oddest thing to have somebody wash my hands.
It really is.
I tried not to think that.
Yeah, no, it really is.
Yeah.
But it's good. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
To do.
Yes. Very cool.
Yeah.
So Steve, y'all alternate, like 1 year you do foot washing and 1 year you do Holy
Well,
Week?
actually, we have an AB pattern for Holy Week, and that includes Good Friday. But on 1 year, we will always include the sacrament of the altar. But then the foot washing actually is kind of like a visual sermon as such.
Yeah.
The year we don't do it, there's typically a sermon preached concerning the institution of the sacrament.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we wash feet. And then at least in our tradition, and I think many Roman Catholics do this at the end of, and Johanna, I don't know if Methodists do, I don't remember it from my youth, but at the end of the Maundy Thursday service, there's a ritual stripping of all decorations in the chancel area at the front of the church. I mean, everything's taken out, all the colored paraments, the candlesticks, everything's removed from that area, and it's quite stark. And Psalm 22 is chanted while that's being done, which is the my God, why have you forsaken me psalm. So it's to represent, Christ being taken into the custody and stripped. It's a very kind of representational, sort of evocative memory rite.
Yeah, we do that as well. I have very vivid memories of growing up as a child, kind of watching everything kind of being taken out of our sanctuary and then being draped in black cloth. And we had at Aldersgate here in Greenville, we drape, that altar and the pulpit area and even the baptismal font in black cloth. And the first year that I was here, watching the baptismal font get draped in black cloth, like that it was closed, just really did me in. And we had a pastor who would, at that time, who on Easter Sunday morning would come in and everything's still kind of draped in this black cloth. And she would come in, she would grab that black cloth and just fling it. And it was awesome. Like it was just this awesome moment of kind of watching everything kind of come back to life. Which I think, Easter Sunday morning Easter doesn't really mean a whole lot if you haven't prepared for it, right? Like, what does it matter if Jesus is back from, if Jesus is back from the dead, if you never even talk about Jesus's death and what led up to that? And so, I'm real intentional about kind of pushing our folks to keep a Holy Lent, however they choose to do that, but to keep a Holy Lent, and really by the time we get to to Holy Week, like take the time to prepare and to walk through these stories, because otherwise Easter just means, I would think if you were Jewish, it would be like a Day of Atonement without actually reflecting on what you have need of atoning. I mean, like it would just be like walking in and it being like no big deal, So
well, and you made me think of something else, was the purple sash, I think, that you see across the cross.
Yeah, purple is the color for Lent. So most of our liturgical seasons have different colors. So purple is the color of suffering. So think bruises or whatnot. So color of suffering, but also the color of royalty. So the idea being that, Jesus is crowned King of Kings and Lord of Lords, with his resurrection. So, yeah.
Right.
Do y'all use blue at Advent, or is it purple both times?
Yeah, we do blue.
Blue, yeah.
Yeah, well, that was introduced through Vatican II, and some Lutherans and Catholics are going back to the purple and one Sunday, Rose Sunday of Gaudete, but we still do blue the whole season of Advent, and of course that's emphasis on hope and expectation, anticipation, looking upward to the sky.
Yeah.
Blue. So, but we use purple, although in our parish we have separate paraments for Holy Week, and they're gray, black, and scarlet.
Lovely.
Based upon the road. Yeah, it is. And then black for Good Friday. After we strip the altar Thursday, it's black. And then, of course, when you come into the Easter Vigil, it's all dark. But when lights come, everything's gold and white.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a very stark contrast.
Yeah, very interesting. Some of the differences that are present in all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I thank you, Josie, for bringing in some of the Catholic. I do remember I did try to get a priest. I do remember I did try to get a priest to participate, and I could not locate one.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
And I tried for a nun as well. Yes, I tried to get a nun too. It was like a nun or a priest, one of them, but I could not locate anybody.
Yeah, well, thank you all, and I enjoyed listening to what Johanna had to explain, and it's not all that different, except, we have a few additional things that we do, like the washing of the feet, the reconciliation, but we're all told that this is a time to repent, say a lot of prayers. We don't talk to God until a lot of us are in trouble and in need of his help. Yeah.
Right, yes, and then we're in bargaining mode.
Yeah. Okay.
And we're trying to strike a deal.
Yes, I know my godmother said God doesn't make deals, Josie.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you guys for joining us. I think I don't think we have any other thoughts or comments from anybody else, but I thank you guys very much for your time and your preparation and sharing your knowledge with us. We thoroughly appreciate it. We will have this available up on YouTube too, for all of those that did not get a chance to make it, that would like to watch it. And I'll send you the link to that tomorrow if you want to share that with anybody, since this is the beginning of Lent and the Lenten season. February, March starts off our new events that we'll have. And so we'll have some other new discussions starting in March. And that will be up on our website by the end of next week. So we thank you very much. And we hope you all have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you
Good night.
all. Bye-bye.
You.
All right.